All right, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here. Day late, dollar short, but I picked today as the day I was going to sit down and watch Season 3 of WWE's Unreal. Season 1 followed from the Monday Night Raw Netflix debut until WrestleMania. Season 2 was WrestleMania to SummerSlam. Now, Season 3 is coming out of SummerSlam. And I'll tell you the truth. Let's just get into the nitty-gritty before we start doing this. I didn't think Season 2 was great. Season 1 was an awesome group of shows. I sat down, I just watched this very first hour of Season 3, Episode 1, The Why. They got me. And I'll tell you the truth. Probably 10 minutes into the first episode, I said, hey, wait a minute, this isn't what I showed up for. I honestly thought that WWE was telling us from the end of Season 2 until watching this today, I really thought Season 3 was going to consist just of John Cena. I thought this was going to be the John Cena, the last time is now retirement tour. I didn't know that we were going to just focus on that time period of WWE, but I'm cool with it. I'm okay with it. This episode right here is pretty much covering the Clash in Paris. It's covering the AJ Lee debut, the WrestlePalooza show, and going into Crown Jewel, the Australian pay-per-view from last year. Not the greatest time period when you can think of like the best times when it comes to wrestling. Normally your best time of the year is going to be that first quarter from that Royal Rumble until WrestleMania. You lose a few people. Most people, will stay until SummerSlam time. And that time, honestly, from, SummerSlam until the Royal Rumble, it feels like when you're watching wrestling, it's just progressively going down. Now, this time, people were really excited because we knew it was the last time that we were going to see John Cena. You couldn't just basically, turn off the TV and miss, these last few matches. And, that's basically what we were hanging on for at that time. There were some good matches. There were some good things that went down, but overall, that's just kind of like the come down before you start ramping it back up. So, this business basically consumed John Cena's life for the past 23 years. He would wake up in the middle of the night thinking of things to do for storylines, things to say in his promos, things to do in his matches. It just was consistently what he thought about and what he was doing. I really liked it how the episode is entitled The Why, but his quote was, "The why is the it, and it is everything." And that really is something that kind of stuck with me. I think that honestly, that's kind of a quote you can use in your life, not just about pro wrestling, but honestly, it can go into just about anything you need it to that gives you that motivation to just, keep pushing forward. And I think it's honestly something that I hope I can institute in my life, a little bit more and more. I liked that as this season was opening, it was John Cena in the ring with Logan Paul, and they were rehearsing, practicing, going through spots for their Clash in Paris. Basically, John Cena, broke down why he was facing Logan Paul, and he thought it was because the fans were looking at Logan Paul as in like he was a waste of John Cena's time. That he wasn't really a WWE superstar, that he wasn't trying to get better, that he was just like a celebrity that was there for the paycheck. And the matches with John Cena, you basically think of last year, Cena had so many things that he did. with Logan Paul, they had the singles match. They had the tag match where they went against Cody and Jey Uso at the Money in the Bank. They had another tag match where it was Cody and Cena against Logan Paul and who was Logan Paul's partner? I like to think it was Drew McIntyre, but I'm not 100% sure that that's right. I knew that Drew and Logan teamed up at SummerSlam against the Randy Orton and Jelly Roll. But maybe I'm just kind of mixing that up just a little bit right there. But, we flash forwarded. We didn't flash forward. I apologize. We reversed it back to season 1. And we basically went over the heel turn. And what John Cena was looking to do is he was trying to recreate his character. He was trying to be more boring of a wrestler. He was trying to be, having really, boring finishes where people would say he sucked and he wasn't trying. And he basically was like, when people were saying negative things about him, he was doing a good job. And he said, I hope you enjoy the next one. But at some point along the way, this was one of the biggest things that I was looking for more than anything else was how they were going to explain this. Because if you were watching, we had build up. It was Cena versus Cody. Cody tricked Cena into signing a match for SummerSlam that he turned it into a street fight. It looked like Cody had the upper hand. And then the SmackDown literally before SummerSlam, Cody and Cena just became friends. And, basically said, what are we doing? Why am I out here, trying to, do the work of The Rock and Travis Scott when they're not going to show up. But on a reality show, showing behind the scenes, how are Triple H, how are John Cena going to diss The Rock, diss Travis Scott without making it look real? You can use the show to kind of put it out there, but you're having to make an explanation of where the hell these guys are and why they're not ever showing up. But, when you're trying to show a behind-the-scenes thing, it would be very easy to piss off somebody, as you know, with Triple H higher on the board than you. You don't want to create heat in the boardroom, I guess you can say. And then Travis Scott, as big of a star he is, if he ever wants to come back, I'm sure they would love for him to walk through that door. I know with Little Yachty coming out with Trick Williams, that's bigger than I think anybody ever thought it was ever going to be. I thought he was just going to be, to a show, and he just keeps showing up. It's just a wonder when he's ever going to want to, go on tour or make music, miss a SmackDown, miss a show, and just not be a part of the deal anymore. But no real explanation other than Triple H just saying, this ain't working, and just going in a different direction. From there, this was the first time something popped up on the screen. Braun Breaker fishing. And I missed a little bit about what he was saying, but I think he was basically saying who he was and where he came from. At that moment, I was kind of like, I thought this was all about John Cena. And, we've never got an encounter of Braun Breaker and John Cena, other than, no, he wasn't in War Games. So, no, we've never seen these two guys together because the vision did not cross paths with John Cena at all during the retirement tour. But I was cool with it. Braun Breaker being on this show honestly shows to me that he is somebody that WWE is interested in showing the other side to try to get more fans to click with this guy and become a future of the WWE. I really honestly thought he would be holding the World Heavyweight Championship by now. Honestly, the biggest headline that has come out of this show since yesterday was that Braun Breaker is going to be said he was the plan to win the Royal Rumble before they changed their mind. I tried to stick away from spoilers as much as I could, but when the headline is the headline, you really can't miss it. But Braun Breaker tells the story of him going to Kennesaw State, being a running back. He picked up some speed in his last season of college. He ended up being brought in by the Baltimore Ravens. He got cut during a training camp, and at that point, he didn't want to do the USFL, XFL. He didn't want to do, Canadian football. He knew what to do. He went right home to Rick Steiner, his father, and said it's time to give this wrestling thing a try. And we see, Braun doing his first, tryouts, and not really tryouts, but, just training, and him delivering a promo to the camera. And Braun Breaker sounds so much like vintage WCW Scott Steiner. I don't know, because Rick didn't really deliver a lot of promos. He, was kind of the guy who let Scott do the talking, but when he had to, he put some stuff out. But I guess it's like a, Dom, Eddie, and Ray thing, where it's just kind of like, I don't know how he's just not cut from Scott Steiner. He's Rick's son, but really good stuff there. I'm looking forward to seeing more out of him, because that honestly was kind of it, and we never really picked up, more than him having his big moment at Crown Jewel. No. That was at the Clash in Paris. Roman Reigns had a match against Bronson Reed, and at the end of the match, when Roman won, Braun came out as Roman was sort of, waving to the fans and sort of soaking in the moment of him getting the win. He was standing on top of the commentator's table, and Braun Breaker snuck down, jumped up onto the table himself, and speared Roman Reigns, which basically took him out to the point where he had to get stretchered out. In my mind, Bronson Reed won that match, but I think it's the next match at Crown Jewel that Bronson Reed gets the big win. We went to the Clash in Paris, where we had the Fatal 4-Way, which was Punk, Rollins, Uso, and LA Knights. But the only thing that we really cared about, honestly, was CM Punk and Seth Rollins. If you were watching the show without knowing the show, you would have thought that they were talking about a singles match. And at the end of the match, when Punk had Rollins set up for the GTS, we had Becky Lynch do a run-in, where basically she punched CM Punk in the paws, and Seth Rollins was able to fall on top, get the 1-2-3, keeping the title that he stole with the Money in the Bank at SummerSlam only months before. What this sets the table for is Punk and bringing in AJ Lee, who is his wife from the company, who she was a big superstar around the time of, I believe, WrestleMania 29 through WrestleMania 31. We set the table of them, being married, being a family. They don't really talk about where they've been or what they've gone through. But they tell the story of Larry the Dog. They talk about, how AJ Lee left wrestling after WrestleMania 31 because of the fact that she went through a lot of things. They don't really talk about the fact how CM Punk left after WrestleMania 30. So AJ Lee was in the company for a year, taking orders from the same people that were fighting with CM Punk behind the scenes. I'm not 100% sure when their wedding date was, but when they actually get married, they serve CM Punk with his release papers the day of the wedding. A lot of this stuff that was going down was personal, and AJ was just kind of wrapped into it. At the same time, she was a superstar. And, she ended up just getting to a point where she said that enough is enough. She cared about her mental health. She left. She wrote her own personal book. She wrote comic books. She wrote a movie that I didn't know she wrote. I'll say the truth, that I never even really heard of the movie. But what this sets the table for is AJ Lee returning to WWE, which was possibly one of the biggest returns that most people thought was never going to happen, of somebody still being able to come down, get into the ring, and wrestle. And she did this at SmackDown in Chicago. She signed her contract the day of her return. She said that one of the things that she left WWE for and that she was fighting for while she was there was, equal pay and equal time. And when she signed her contract to be in WWE, she was being paid basically the same thing that CM Punk was paying for. Basically, equal pay for equal workers in the workplace. It doesn't really matter who's filling out the card or who's filling out the show. Everybody basically being paid the same. And, we get to WrestlePalooza, which was WWE's first pay-per-view that was going to be held on ESPN, with the whole ESPN app that was being launched. And the matchup would be CM Punk teaming with AJ Lee, going up against Seth and Becky. Basically, married couple versus married couple. And one of the things that Punk and Seth both loved was the match was more about the women in the match, being AJ Lee versus Becky, more than it was about, Punk and Seth. That was something that basically people could see almost all of the time, and just people going crazy to actually see AJ back into the ring. On that same show, we had John Cena going one-on-one against Brock Lesnar, and Cena talks about the fact that Brock got the better of him that night. That was basically his idea. It was Cena's idea to basically bring Brock back to the company, Triple H said. And Cena wanted to give Brock the energy because he was leaving that Brock would be able to give somebody else. But the problem I have with that is that, basically Brock does WrestlePalooza. Brock does War Games, where he comes back and his team just wins. He does the Royal Rumble, where, Brock doesn't win. But the only time Brock ever gives anything back would be WrestleMania, when he loses to Obafemi. Of course, that's where he, takes his boots off, he takes his gloves off, and he retires, he waves goodbye, which then would set up him coming back to beat Oba. And now here we have Hell in the Cell coming up sooner than later at SummerSlam, that we're waiting for. But basically, we're looking at July to April. Brock coming back, Brock beating Cena, and fans still looking around like, what the hell was that all about? I understand if you want to give something to Brock Lesnar for him to be able to give Obafemi, but when the guy is not around, we've been through Brock Lesnar in WWE since WrestleMania 28. He hasn't been full-time, but he's been part-time. There was, I believe, a 2 or 3 year period where he wasn't in the company because of a Janelle Grant lawsuit. But we all know what goes on with Brock. No matter if he wins or loses, he's not going to be around certain times of the year. The second Brock comes back, he's heated back up. There's times of the year we're not really thinking about Brock because we know he's not, available, I guess you could say. So I just don't understand why this happened still to this date, even with that explanation. They had on the calendar for John Cena's, lists of opponents that, Cena was going to have a matchup against Drew McIntyre that was scheduled for Perth, Australia, Crown Jewel. But somewhere along the way, when John Cena was delivering a promo in the ring with Logan Paul, he basically was saying in his promo that Logan Paul was a speed bump in his way, because he was looking forward to having more matches with, Dominic Mysterio, AJ Styles, and he said other names along the way. And Cena noticed a pop in the crowd for the AJ Styles match, and he was wondering, is this something that people really cared about? And he posted one tweet: Cena versus AJ. Is this what you want? And that got, some internet steam. And then he posted it again, but this time he linked Triple H into it. And basically, it picked up enough steam that it got on the radar, and plans were changed. And even though it happened in Australia, it went down. And I thought it was really cool that there's a big asterisk right here. Cena says he knew that AJ was retiring at the Royal Rumble. We did not know that at the time, but, Cena was talking about the fact that sooner than later, Cena would be gone, AJ would be gone, and that would be something that the people wanted, so that's why he wanted to deliver. This is the Cena versus AJ match that basically turned into a finisher fest. First, Cena hit AJ with his sister Abigail. He followed it up with an RKO. At one point, the crowd was asking for a 619, where Cena put a drop toe hold on AJ and then basically told AJ to clothesline him as he was coming off the ropes to make sure that he didn't have to do this 619. And then the match ended up being finished off with the tombstone right there in the middle of the ring, and Cena was able to get the win over AJ. As fun as that was, we go to the back, and, Cena and AJ are sort of congratulating themselves, trying to pull themselves together after the match is done. Seth Rollins, who's coming out for his match next, straight up just calls both of them, show off, just calls them an asshole for basically stealing the show, stealing the spotlight, something that he knew that him and even Cody Rhodes were not going to be able to follow. But this is the match where Seth gets hurt, basically going for the Van Terminator, where he comes off of the top turnbuckle and he goes basically coast to coast. I remember Cody really leaning out to make sure that Seth hit this. But when Seth and Cody collided, right away, you knew something was wrong. They used the camera that's basically inside of the ring for this move. And you can hear Rollins, tell Cody, I think my shoulder's broke. Basically they go into the back and they're having Rollins looked at and, basically probed and prodded. And, I don't think they ever really came out and said what it was, but they said it was a certain amount of months. And, Seth Rollins' first question was, what month is that? I don't want to do the math. I don't want to be counting on my fingers. And he knows right away it's Mania time. And he just knows that it's another year. It's that time. He doesn't know if he's going to be ready for WrestleMania. You can remember the Seth Rollins WWE 24 documentary that was on around. It was on the network around WrestleMania 32. That's what it was built around, him missing that Mania. I think it was called Seth Rollins Rebuilt. And, WrestleMania 40, we didn't really know what we were going to get out of him, but he ends up working both days. He works the tag match night 1. He comes back. He does the job to Drew McIntyre night 2. It's another year of just not knowing what it's going to be. And we see the WWE creative just fully erasing the whole board of all plans are out the window. We got to figure this out. Seth Rollins, who just beat Cody Rhodes to be the crown jewel champion, the champion of champions, is hurt. They're going to have to take the title off him. And what do we do from here? Episode end. All right, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today with episode 2 of season 3 of WWE Unreal on Netflix. This one is entitled The Last Time Is Now. I'll tell you this much. I thought this whole season was going to cover the last year of John Cena, and for as much fun as I made fun of wrestling fans, pouring out their outcry of, John Cena retiring with tears and things like that, I'll tell you this much, I'm sad that I am now realizing that John Cena will not be on any more episodes of WWE Unreal for 3 seasons. Right out of the gate, these first 2 episodes are really, really good. The questions, the comments, the concerns I had about season 2, out the window. From here on out, the first 2 hours of this show have been dynamite. I am so glad I've gone out of my way in order to watch these shows. I'm surprised both episodes, I took 2 pages of notes, not just writing down the matches, but my feelings and thoughts that they were coming out, knowing that they would kind of like bring up the memories that I had during this time. And I'll tell you this much. John Cena, really smart dude. Well, really smart dude. I thought we were jumping right into it, but that's actually a little bit farther down the thing. But this episode started with CM Punk versus John Cena, going over to Saudi Arabia. They didn't really spend a lot of time on what I thought could have been really good with the John Cena pipe bomb promo that went down on SmackDown when John Cena wrestled against R-Truth, and then of course laid out CM Punk, and then put him through a table and then sat up on the top turnbuckle and sort of recited a much like CM Punk pipe bomb from 2011 that lit the wrestling storm by crazy. I'll tell you the truth, most of the time when WWE goes to Saudi Arabia, they are not must-see shows. People who want to watch them, but it's kind of like if you're going to take a PLE, a pay-per-view off, that one's normally okay. Every once in a while, something like Bray Wyatt, Goldberg winning the title, something like that happens. But for the most part, it's just the show. It's almost like a house show, basically just put on TV that they made a lot of money for. It's going to have a lot of pyro, things like that. But CM Punk, he was basically thinking of ideas about something that could pop into his mind, and basic punkonomics came into his head, basically, with Punk and Cena getting into the ring. We had CM Punk come out for the last meeting between the two on SmackDown before the match happened, and CM Punk was dressed up like John Cena would have been in 2002, where he was wearing the big gold chain, he was wearing a Cubs jersey, and, he had a Barstool personality, Roan, basically battle rap a script out for him. And even John Cena was really surprised that CM Punk hit all his marks, didn't forget any of his lines, and was able to go through it. But during the promo, there was a moment when CM Punk drew in close to John Cena without the mic and tells him, "I'm going to miss you." And that was a very personal moment between the two that John Cena really appreciated, and CM Punk thought he was kind of like bringing John Cena into the moment, making him like step up his game a little bit, through and through. I'll tell you the truth, we don't even talk, we don't even see the CM Punk versus John Cena match, but of course the title reign continues with John Cena, getting the win over CM Punk. I think this is a little bit out of sorts, because I think this happened when the title was still on Cena. That was definitely a title match, so it would have been before SummerSlam, at least the way that I'm thinking of it right now. So maybe they just found a time to kind of slide it into an episode. I didn't even really think about it at the time until we got to now, because present day John Cena would be babyface John Cena. But, Seth Rollins in episode 1 at the very end, we had the injury in the match with Cody Rhodes, and they're breaking down what are they going to do with the Vision now that Seth Rollins is injured. The Vision basically being Paul Heyman, being the head, with Seth Rollins being the wrestler of the group, while Braun and Bronson are like the supporting anchors that make sure the championship stays into the group, because the Vision storyline basically is Seth Rollins is the now, while Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed are the foreseeable future of the group. The only problem is that they never spread their wings. They would make appearances on SmackDown, but you think one would be going for the World Heavyweight Championship while another was going for the WWE title, sort of like WWE domination, world domination, not just Monday Night Raw domination. But from the outbreak, Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker with Paul Heyman said their ambition was to conquer Monday Night Raw. At one point, they even, challenged Sami Zayn and said, Sami, if you leave Raw and go to SmackDown, we'll leave you alone. We'll even make sure that when you get to SmackDown, you'll get a title shot. We just want you off of Raw. So they never really able to spread it out. But they think of like NWO decided that they were just going to conquer Nitro, but they left Thunder alone, or they left Saturday Night alone. The NWO bled into WCW, and they wanted to conquer WCW, so they were always kind of moving. So even though the Vision is still going on today, not as strong, because Paul Heyman basically isn't around, Logan Paul is hurt, Rollins isn't with the group anymore. It's just Braun Breaker wrestling with Austin Theory because Bronson Reed has been gone for a while. It is what it is. Okay, there we go. Once Seth went down with the injury, they had to strip the championship away. I believe they created some kind of a tournament, for everything to come down to. And, in the end, CM Punk, who had already won a number one contenders match, was given a match against Jey Uso on an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event, where CM Punk won the title. It was an overwhelming, pretty, clean sweep of the writers' room. Everybody's saying that Punk was the right one to go with the belt. In my mind, it would have gave Jey Uso a definite shot in the arm. Here we are, building up into SummerSlam. And Jey Uso is going to be wrestling in a 6-man tag match. Last year, he was teaming with Roman Reigns in a tag match against Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. Although it wasn't the main event, you're in a match with Roman Reigns. That's pretty high up on the card. Now he's just going to be in a 6-man tag. I'm a fan of Jacob Fatu. I'm a fan of the Usos. But we're pretty much thinking that Jey Uso is just going to walk out and hopefully win a tag title on Monday Night Raw in the next upcoming year. We're not looking for him to win the Royal Rumble, which this year was a storyline going into the Royal Rumble, that the reason why the Usos were teaming up together was to get Jey Uso a couple of wins so he could have some winning formula going into the Rumble. Get a couple wins under his belt. Where are we at now? But Punk wins the title. We had him and Cody celebrating a gorilla position. Punk asking, what do I do? Is it normal that I travel with the belt? And Cody was kind of telling him, Triple H is going to call you every once in a while and basically be like, we need to get you on the Jimmy Fallon show. We need to get you, to do this. You're just flying around doing press. And if you have the belt with you, it's going to make your trip easier, and it's going to make, WWE's, because they're not having to go out of their way to make sure you have a belt when you get there. So Cody's basically just telling them, it's not normal, it's not what everybody does, but he does to make sure that it makes his job easier. We see Liv Morgan back at home on her ranch. They're trying to rev her up to get ready for her return. Liv Morgan, it's hard to believe, is an 11-year vet in WWE. I remember when she was in NXT, she was first getting her first TV time. She had like a gimmick that she loved to eat pizza, and kind of her pictures on Twitter were the first things that got me to really notice who she was. And then she got into the ring. Of course, the big story about her and Enzo, and then trying to figure out how she got with Enzo. That got her rolling a little bit better for me. But even when she made her debut on SmackDown with the Riot Squad, her, Ruby Riot, and I can't remember the other girl's name, the Viking, I guess you can say, she never really, got it for me. It was, seeing her in the Rumble with number 2 finishes 2 years in a row. I think they said it was 2023, 2024. Her working her way up, finally winning the World Heavyweight Championship. Her sending Becky Lynch home on an episode of Monday Night Raw, winning a steel cage match where Becky said she was leaving WWE if she didn't, regain her title in this match. It's kind of crazy that it's been going on this long, but Liv had suffered an injury earlier in the year where she was on Monday Night Raw wrestling against Asuka. It was sort of like a normal takedown, and she hurt something in her shoulder. She didn't know how bad it was. She got to the back. She thought it was basically just separated. Basically, the doctor put it back into place, and immediately, was that it? Was that it? Am I good? And the doctor's like, no, you are not good. And she has to go in. She has to get surgery. That's just the start of the road. But they're pitching ideas like, how do we get Liv back into the fold? And they come up with the idea that's pitched by Bruce Pritchard, that Liv makes her return at Survivor Series, where she would help Dominic Mysterio in the match against John Cena for the Intercontinental title. And that's basically what we flashed to. That match was in San Diego. It was at Petco Park. That was a fun day. I flew down to San Diego. I met my buddy Miguel. The show's not about me, but it was a great day of wrestling. Beautiful San Diego. We go to the match where we don't do a lot of the build-up. We didn't talk about the Monday Night Raw. We didn't talk about Cena challenging for the IC, winning the IC on Monday Night Raws. But, the match is up for grabs. And Roxanne and Raquel are kicked out of the match for interference, getting into the ring. And as soon as the referee kicks the girls out, JD and Finn Balor come running down to get involved. And they are hit by a double FU from John Cena. And at that moment, Liv Morgan's music comes on. She runs down to the ring. I don't know why we fell for it, thinking that, she was actually coming down to help John Cena. She was a member of the Judgment Day. There was a thing that was rolled out that people were hoping that, Dom was going to cheat on Liv with Roxanne. It was kind of always brought up. It was always kind of in the air why she wasn't around. It never really ever came to be, but Liv came running down to the ring. She jumped into John Cena's arms. You saw her face dramatically change, much like Cena with Cody when he turned. She jumped out of his arms, kicked him into the balls. Dom rolled him up. 1, 2, 3. Intercontinental Championship back into the arms of the Judgment Day. And we roll right out of that, which was Survivor Series weekend, to, I believe, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks down the road. Saturday night's main event. John Cena's official last match. We knew going into it that, that was going to be it. He was not going to wrestle into 2026. And he came up with the idea. Like, people kept asking, John, why don't you retire at WrestleMania? Why don't you try to help out WrestleMania 42 going into the next year? WrestleMania, the ultimate biggest show of the year, the biggest payday. If we're in December, why not just go until April? And he says that it's good for the company because it's helping out the most down quarter of the year, quarter number 4, which would be December. As a wrestling fan, I can tell you it's one of the most easiest months to fall out of love with wrestling with, friends, family, Christmas. Definitely with my job, you go from Thanksgiving into Christmas. You have New Year's right around the corner. We don't have time for WWE's TLC pay-per-view. Most of the time, I don't even remember watching those shows. I don't remember really watching Raw during those months. Of course, those are a lot of the tape shows to give the superstars time off for, the holidays and things like that. They just kind of get pushed out of the way, and you get a lot of, John Cena helping Santa Claus get ran over by Alberto Del Rio. Kind of shows that you wish you could forget. But, John Cena pitched the idea of, hey, if this is going to be my last match, if it's going to be a Saturday night's main event, why not make it something special to shine a light on the future of WWE? And he wanted to see the likes of Obafemi, Sol Ruka, Javon Evans, a guy's name from TNA that I honestly forgot, even though I saw him lose the X Division title to Cedric Alexander at the show here in Sacramento. And of course, it would be headlined by Gunther versus John Cena. That was a really, really good show. We see a little bit of Obafemi versus, Cody Rhodes. That is the welcome of Obafemi to the world of WWE, who is the, picture for episode 3. So I'm guessing he is going to be a big part of the back half of WWE's Unreal. He's quite possibly going to be the biggest star in WWE in the foreseeable future. The only problem with Obafemi versus Cody Rhodes is the match was basically to set up Cody versus Drew McIntyre, which was a big feud in the foreseeable future where Drew is actually going to beat Cody for the championship in the opening month on SmackDown. But it's a great way to roll out Obafemi because I'll tell you the truth, it might have been the first time that I had seen Obafemi because I'm not the biggest NXT fan. I've seen a few videos along the way. He was NXT champion. He had lost the championship. He won it back. He left it in the ring when he won it back. I knew about him from wrestling cards that people were saying he was going to be a big deal. He was going to be the ruler, but that was the first time that I had ever really seen him. We go to the back where basically CM Punk is talking about that. I think he had been just cruising online and seen a clip of a Monday Night Raw where there was a 6-man tag with John Cena, Batista, and Hulk Hogan. John Cena and Batista were both each brand's champion at the time, and to end Monday Night Raw, they put the World Heavyweight as well as the WWE Championship on Hogan's shoulders and let him do a pose down, holding the belts as kind of like a congratulatory thank you, although it wasn't like the retirement of Hulk Hogan because we wouldn't get that until 2010 to 2011 in TNA. And when Hogan had his last match, we really didn't know it was really his last match. I remember holding on to the fact, thinking that Hogan would be able to do something with John Cena at WrestleMania 30 when he was coming back to the company. He comes up with the idea of just going down there when Cena is having his goodbye and putting the titles on his belt with Cody, knowing that John Cena is going to hate it But he knows that it needs to be done as something for wrestling at that time. As the Cena versus Gunther match is going on, I'm looking in the crowd. I'm looking for my friends Zach and Luke. I was so jealous of them. I would have done anything to be there. And I know that match, it was right before Christmas. I wonder if it was a part of my mandatory work schedule as being the leader of the meat department. Like they tell me days around holidays. They want me to be there for this, for that. If they were there, I should have been there. That would have been so much fun to be there with them. But to have that moment where you just go onto Twitter and you see that they're there, that was just awesome to me. And I hope that all of my friends from Ravi to Miguel to Mike, Matt Beast, anybody that saw that, I hope they popped for it as much as I did. But that match was going on. Cena tapped out. Doc Hendricks saying, "We're the biggest marks of all," which is followed up by Cody Rhodes saying that wrestlers are the biggest marks. That's why they get into this business, but they do it. And if you can normally pop the boys, you can pop the crowd. And I just can't believe the boos and the cheers. Who didn't know that John Cena was going to lose that match? The second that he made it as an announcement, I knew that John Cena was losing his last match. That's what wrestling is. That's what wrestling does. Wrestlers don't win their last match. You put over the future to make wrestling keep going. I mean, that's just the way that it's always been. When they put the titles on Cena's shoulders, Cena hated it. Punk and Cody looked on like the most proud parents of all time, like trying to get their teenage kids to take a photo, whether it's like them leaving to go to prom or go to homecoming or go to graduation. They just don't want to do it, and they don't realize that they just need that photo, and then they can go off and they can do their own thing from there on out. But Michael Cole was crying on commentary. I was wondering if Cole was looking on, and Cole's kind of like, I was there when this guy debuted in 2002. I'm here for his retirement. I wonder if it was Michael Cole kind of realizing how old that he really was. But I'm not really sure. This seemed like John Cena was taking ownership of that match, how it went down, how it ended, but just Triple H booed out of the building. Booed during the retirement, booed during the goodbye, booed during the post-match with Rosenberg. The guy's good at that job. I listened to a lot of stuff with Alvarez and Meltzer talking about he had his day and he's not the booker that he once was. If you don't want to say that he is the best booker or a good booker at all, you got to at least admit that he keeps that flowing. We've never really had like the peaks and valleys of losing the locker room in WWE. They've always kind of been good there. And I think Triple H is a great dude to have in charge. But looking forward to it. I'll tell you the truth. My girlfriend came home during this time, so I didn't make the video right out of the way. I'm rolling into episode 3. It's a lot about the Royal Rumble. And I'm looking forward to it. So, episode 2. Hit it out of the park. Home run. All right, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. This is episode 3 of season 3 of WWE's Unreal. This is the first episode coming out of the John Cena era. John Cena was retired in the last episode in his match to Gunther at Saturday night's main event. This episode is basically going to start rolling back a little bit until War Games, touching on Braun Breaker and his run with Division. But mainly focusing on most of the Royal Rumble 2026, which leads up to the main events of WrestleMania 42, as well as the pushes of Obafemi. I don't want to say there's a substantial drop-off from the John Cena episodes, but this one here, Obafemi, Trick Williams, Chelsea Green, Matt Cardona, pretty heavy is what we're doing with. So you're kind of going from here to here-ish, I'm ready to say. They explain to you what the Royal Rumble is. I get it. This is going to live on Netflix. Season 3, we've seen it live on the front page of Netflix. I think almost all wrestling fans have watched this or at least started it. But Netflix has a way of pushing their shows to you. This is a mega show. I'm sure if I go over to my mom's house, she's never watched WWE Unreal. She didn't watch the Hulk Hogan documentary, the Vince McMahon documentary. You know, she hasn't touched the WWE archive of WrestleMania matches or anything like that. But I guarantee you, if I go to her main screen, WWE Unreal will be fed to her, at least on today's top picks for you. And more than likely, it will live as she is scrolling. She will see Cody Rhodes. Whoa! Just like that, just a little bit. But the Royal Rumble, it kicks off the year. If you're saying it is opening day for WWE, it is a little bit weird because WrestleMania is known as their Super Bowl, which is only 4 months down the road. And then what does that mean for WrestleMania to SummerSlam, SummerSlam to Survivor Series, and then Survivor Series to the Royal Rumble? But it is the beginning of the calendar year because it falls in January. You find out at that show who is going to be main eventing WrestleMania, who's going to be going after what championship, at least for the one men's and for one women's. We've had most Royal Rumble winners challenge in the main event. And then we've had a couple, Sheamus, Jey Uso, Alberto Del Rio. There's more of them than I thought there was. Some winners who just basically wrestle for a championship in the opening match of WrestleMania. That's just the way it falls, and especially, when it was a one-night show, and then Jey Uso did it, but I think WrestleMania 41 needed that to kick off WrestleMania with the big yeet-a-thon and everybody yeeting like crazy. Jey Uso was a character in Season 1, the beginning push of Jey Uso. I really wish that he was a part of this. I don't know if Roman Reigns pulled him aside since Roman hasn't been a part of WWE Unreal at all. If they can get Cody, if they can get John, I wonder why they can't get the Bloodline guys in there. I think that Jey Uso really could use the push of getting that. But at one point, it is thought of Braun Breaker to win the Royal Rumble. If you watched my Royal Rumble prediction videos, Royal Rumble time, you're basically making a video almost each and every week after Raw, after SmackDown, trying to feel out how the storylines are going, trying to pick who that guy is going to be. Braun Breaker was the guy that I was picking most of the time. Triple H and the booking committee got it in their mind that Braun Breaker shouldn't win the Rumble because Braun Breaker winning the Rumble and going to WrestleMania it feels like he's being force-fed down your throat. And there's been competitors in WWE that the fans have said, no, we don't want this. They're kind of scared since they tried the big push with Roman Reigns and they didn't want to give up on it. They knew he was going to be a big star. People asked for him to be heel. And it wasn't until they turned him heel that he became what they thought he was going to be. Braun Breaker can't miss. I understand Braun Breaker had an injury. There was a little bit of a setback. He didn't get a WrestleMania match, but he did return to Mania. He had a big feud with Seth Rollins. But now, Braun Breaker's just a dude with the tag titles. There's parts of this show that feels like I'm wanting it to be last year's WrestleMania. This was months ago. This honestly feels pretty fresh. And Braun Breaker is just completely out of everything going into SummerSlam. Austin Theory is basically the leader of the division right now. And Braun Breaker is a dude just kind of getting his moves in. I'm really hoping, I'm really thinking about SummerSlam. If Braun Breaker's even going to be on the show, putting the titles on the line, can we get him in a pre-show match? Maybe? That's so weak when I thought this guy, he lost that match to CM Punk on Netflix on the Stranger Things edition of Monday Night Raw. He did basically the same thing Jey Uso did last year, where he admitted his defeat, said he'd be ready next time. I guess they would have been screwed, because if he would have run the Rumble, he would have got hurt, and maybe they escaped it. But I'm really hoping that it's not like a Finn Balor thing, where when Balor won the title in 2016, he rehabbed, he came back, and they just never really trusted him in a role. It's kind of like you just think of him, you think of an injury, but I just hope he spears Austin Theory sooner than later. Even if it leads to an Austin Theory feud, come out of that, and then hopefully they can push this guy back up the card. Does he need to win the Intercontinental title? I'm talking too much about what's really going on today instead of then, but Braun Breaker should have won the Rumble. And I think it just would have put him on a different career path. He wouldn't have got hurt, wouldn't have missed Mania, would have won the title, and he'd be the main dude in the company. I love Obafemi. Obafemi's getting pushed to that spot. Obafemi needs somebody to fight. He's a babyface. He needs a heel. Braun Breaker. Who doesn't want to see Obafemi versus Braun Breaker? Something fresh, something new, something now. I apologize. That was a tangent. But yeah, they don't want to shove him down his throat, so they don't want to give him the championship. It is what it is. But we go from there to Liv Morgan, who still is not wrestling. She is rehabbing for a return. She's got her own wrestling ring at her personal ranch. I don't know if the barn is small, if the ring is small, if I didn't understand when she was hitting the ropes how she and the ropes weren't hitting the sides of the barn. But it's pretty damn cool that she has her own ring, and she's working out there. She's still trying to get cleared. You would have thought that when she came back at the Survivor Series, she would have been ready to go. But like Bruce Pritchard said, it was just offense, no defense. She wasn't really, going out of her way. I really wonder what she did between Survivor Series and the Rumble. But I knew she was going to win the Rumble. Who didn't know that Liv was going to win the Rumble? We see Seth Rollins dealing with his shoulder injury that we saw at the end of episode 2. Or was that even episode 1? It feels like forever ago. He's on his bus. He's rolling down to Birmingham, getting ready for his surgery. Rollins says something that I thought was weird, and I kind of was thinking, there's no way what he's saying is true. If you think about CM Punk, CM Punk's big thing about coming back to WWE, a lot of the reasons why people think he left WWE around the time of WrestleMania 30 was the fact that CM Punk wanted to main event WrestleMania. And CM Punk felt that when he main evented night 1 of WrestleMania 41, he had kind of accomplished his goal. But there was people like me that really wanted to see him push himself to main event that night 2 of Mania. He did it at WrestleMania 42, and it was a match against Roman, and I don't think you need to win it. I think he just needs to be there. At least for me, that is a major accomplishment for anybody. Not very many people get the main event WrestleMania. I think main event night 2 is bigger than night 1, but Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens are going to hang their hat on that, and I'm not one to basically call them out and say they didn't do it. But Rollins says that he's never main evented WrestleMania. He cashed in at WrestleMania 31, but he wasn't on the marquee. He's had championship matches, and I'm thinking about it, like he opened WrestleMania 35 against Brock Lesnar. He's been in big matches here, big matches there. One of the biggest matches was him versus Triple H that year at Mania. That was the one match that, honestly, I really cared about. That was my main event. But Seth Rollins is wondering how much longer he's going to be doing this and if he's going to be able to accomplish his goal. He did main event night 1 of WrestleMania 41, and I can't really think of him main eventing a Mania. And I just think that is wild. When I think about Seth Rollins, I think about him being on top of the game from basically 2016 till today. But just that one day a year when WrestleMania falls, he's never been in that main event spot of night 2. That's nuts. So he's going in. He's going to get his rotator cuff repaired at the surgery. Becky Lynch is with him. She doesn't want to watch the surgery or be in the room. She ends up sitting in a room where she can control what she's seeing on the monitor when she wants to look, when she don't wants to look. They have a conversation between Becky and Rollins. It must be like instantly out of the surgery. Seth seems like he is completely out of it. His speech is just so slow, and the words just don't really go together. I'm surprised that they used it for the doc. We go to War Games in San Diego, talking about it being a big moment for Braun Breaker, and then going out of their way to make sure this match is built around him to be a focus point of what is going down, playing off of the fact that they were thinking that maybe he could win the Royal Rumble that year. But instantly in the match, I think he opens it against CM Punk. He, ends up landing on his neck, and they flash to real life, and he's like, yeah, that could have been really bad. I really didn't know where I was or what was going on, and you see the guys in the back instantly scrambling because he's going to be such a big part of the entire match, wondering if they need to give his role to somebody else to make sure they can have the match that they want to have. Doctor ends up pulling Braun to the side of the cage, not interrupting the match, and they figure out Braun's going to be okay. And Triple H and everybody is like, crisis averted. Think of how bad the landscape of WWE was because of the Vision's injuries. Think if there would have been a real life major injury to Braun Breaker at War Games, what condition they would have been going out of WrestleMania. I told everybody WrestleMania 42 is snake bit. It is what it is. They had the show. It's not going to be a Mania that people put on their top 10 list. It's just going to be the one that got away from them. But I said that by the time SummerSlam came, they would have everything fixed. Well, think about what I was saying earlier with Braun Breaker. He's not even really a part of it. But I mean, think of how bad it would be if Braun would have really been there. Coming out of that, they're in the booking meeting, and Triple H is basically telling them throw anything out there for the Rumble. We just want to have everything out to see what's going down. We have Bruce Pritchard basically throwing out that we need to create stars now. We need to bring some people from NXT. We need to shake it up. We need to get these guys ready. These guys aren't going to hit the ground running right out of the gate, but at least we have them. for when we need them, because it's getting dire here. And the two standouts from NXT would be Obafemi and Trick Williams. Obafemi is a guy that WWE found in college doing shot put. He went through a 2021 tryout policy. They were basically, he ended up getting hired by WWE, brought in as like the Stars of Tomorrow, and trained. He ends up being in a spot where he's one of the main standouts in NXT. We've got Trick Williams, who I think he was a basketball player. Am I saying right? South Carolina, University of South Carolina. I'm sure. I think that's the college that he went to. Maybe North Carolina's blue, South Carolina's red. He went to South Carolina. He was a Gamecock, and he's got a good character. He's not a heel. He's not a baby face. He's gonna find his own way. Fans love to chant, "Whoop that trick! Whoop that trick!" As he makes his way down to the ring. The rap song that was in, I had it ready and I just dropped it. Gosh darn it! What was the name of that? It was a movie. It was rap. It probably came out around 2005. It was about a guy trying to get his rap career off the ground. Ludacris played a rapper. He gave him his demo tape. The guy threw the demo tape in the trash. Then the guy ended up getting pissed drunk at the bar. And the guy finds the tape in the trash. And then he beats the shit out of him. And ends up having to go to jail. And that's how, the people start playing his record. Oh, yeah, by the way, he is a pimp as well. There's prostitutes involved in the movie. What was the name of that freaking movie? It's something, The Game or something like that. It's a really, really good movie. It's not like I sit here and watch it weekly or anything like that, but I've watched it once every 5 years. It's a good movie. But the author of that Whoop That Trick song reached out to Trick Williams, said he appreciated what he was doing, and that was kind of like a blessing for them to do it. Obafemi was a part of the John Cena Saturday Night's Main Event show. Trick Williams, his first time really getting on my radar. I saw things from him in NXT. I remember when Carmelo Hayes was the NXT champion. Trick Williams wanted to be his friend. Everybody thought that Trick was going to turn on Carmelo. It ended up being Carmelo turning on Trick. We had Carmelo versus Trick matches back and forth. But the first time that he really got on my radar was after his debut on SmackDown versus Sami Zayn. He ended up being in a fatal four-way to be the number one contender for the championship at the Royal Rumble. That would be the fight against Drew McIntyre, I think, pretty sure. I think Sami won that one. And then people thought that Sami was going to beat Drew for the championship because of the fact he was in Saudi Arabia. Little we know that Sami would actually beat Cody later in the year for that WWE championship. But we see behind the scenes with Oba and Trick. Trick Williams, he is engaged to Lash Legend, who is a SmackDown superstar as well that came up through NXT. We see them going to a farm, visiting some elephants, relive their engagement party, and them being together and just trying to get it off the ground in WWE, I guess you could say. But from there, we visit with Chelsea Green. We met her in season 1. We touched on her in season 2. She was building her home 3 years ago, but now her home is finally built. She is somebody that WWE loves to give moments to because she doesn't need a lot, but every moment that they give to her, she is basically going to take advantage of it. They use an example of her breaking her nose on Saturday Night's Main Event in a match in Tampa, which led to her getting a mask, much like The Undertaker used back in the day, but she bedazzled the mask, trying to make herself look better to stand out. She didn't end up missing any work, but her giving a little tour around her house, we basically meet her husband, Matt Cardona, who she's been married to the whole time, but WWE Unreal chose not to show because he wasn't involved with the company. But she says that, with him coming back to work for the company, they're able to spend more than one day a week together. They're trying to find out, though, how this is going to work, because the way that they travel is both completely different. The amount of sleep Chelsea gets. Matt likes to make a lot of noise in the room because he's recording his podcast. He also famously has his bag explode, keeping his stuff all over his room. Brian's made fun of him for this for years. Chelsea Green likes to keep things sort of neat and tidy around the room. Matt douses himself with Tanner, jumps into the bed and ruins the sheets, things like that. But they're trying to figure out, as Cardona was brought back into the company, how it's going to work with them basically being together. She basically talks about building the house and making sure that Matt had a large enough toy collection. They go into the new famously toy room. This had to have been filmed, honestly, fairly recent, because I listened to the Cardona show weekly, the Major Wrestling Figure podcast. He's been putting together this toy room for a while, but they haven't been in the house, honestly, that long. The toy room is not even done, and they're moving the stuff in. They got loose figures, filling up the room, all in these Tupperware bins. Who's Lucy? But he sneaks in a commercial for the Big Rubber Guys, showing off, Andre the Giant, Brooklyn Brawler, Macho Man Randy Savage. We see a bin of them with Magnum TA. This is a company famously pumping out the LJN reruns to the point where Mattel said, hey, we got to get in on this. They just got me this week. The Big Rubber Guys with the Mick Foley release. Today with it being Comic-Con as well, a lot of the future releases. We've got the Killer Bees, Nikita Koloff. There's a new Sting. There's new AEW figures, which I thought with Matt Cardona coming back to the company, they would try and find a way to sort of kill that relationship. But it looks like we're getting Darby Allins, we're getting MJFs, other guys around the company and things like that. So a good commercial for the Big Rubber Guy brand. But we get to Saudi Arabia for the Royal Rumble. We start out with the Women's Rumble. We've got Sol Ruca making her debut in the match. She ends up hitting a move on Charlotte, where Charlotte ends up breaking her veneers. Lash Legend, who we touched on, she's in her second Royal Rumble, but she ends up with 5 eliminations. She ends up being the one to eliminate both Bella Twins. She eliminates Charlotte, which is a big moment for her. At number 22, Rhea Ripley runs out. Her and Chelsea Green share a moment where basically her and Rhea salute each other, and then Rhea pops her in the face, basically throwing her out of the Rumble. And then she has to turn around and, with her group of girls, catch Roxanne Perez, who is being eliminated at the same time with the Razor's Edge. But the Women's Rumble comes down to Liv, Tiffany Stratton, and Sol Ruca. Raquel is in the final 4, but she's eliminated by Liv Morgan right away. Always going to be some tension in the Judgment Day. We're talking about it each time we're making a video on them. Somebody in that group is not getting along. But Liv, Tiffany Stratton, and Sol Ruca end up being tied up on the ropes. It's one of the coolest finishes the Royal Rumble's ever done. Much like, Davey Boy and Shawn Michaels back in the day, but it's 3 girls instead of just being the 2. In the end, Liv gets the win. She's pumped. She's running to the back. She's already talking about what she's going to do at WrestleMania when she tries to figure out which championship she's going to go for. She ends up going after the Monday Night Raw title held by Stephanie Bakir. they have a very personal feud. So I think I really want to see that touched on, with Liv Morgan being such a big character in this episode. I'm really hoping she'll be in episode 4 and episode 5 as well. But head over to the men's rumble, where Obafemi comes out number 1. Making his debut. Braun Breaker ends up being number 2, but he is jumped by the Masked Man. We saw a Masked Man at War Games be the finish of War Games, where the bad guys ended up getting the win, but now the bad guys getting jumped by the Masked Man, who in the long run will reveal himself to be Seth Rollins, but it was a major mystery for WWE for a while. Trick Williams comes out number 10. At one point, Brock Lesnar joins the fray, where basically Brock and Oba are going at each other. Obafemi is going over to the side, trying to eliminate Logan Paul. At that point, Brock eliminates him from behind. Oba just took his eyes off Brock, forgot that he was there. And, that is the setup for what we all know is coming. Javon Evans makes his Royal Rumble debut. He's a little bit more fresh blood in there. He would have been a guy that would have been great to talk to in the last episode about making that Saturday night's main event match on the John Cena, farewell show. And then him having his Royal Rumble debut here as well. Roman Reigns eliminates Jey Uso, follows that up by eliminating Cody Rhodes. We're left with a final 4 of Logan Paul, Roman Reigns, Gunther, and Randy Orton. Roman eliminates Gunther to get the win here. As I was sitting here and I was trying to figure this out as I was writing notes in this Mania feels like forever ago. I was forgetting that Cody won the championship back. Cody was going on to WrestleMania, where he would challenge against Randy Orton. Gunther had the match against Seth Rollins. I was trying to put this all together in the thing. I couldn't even, to this point, still think of what Logan Paul did. I'm guessing he defended the tag titles with Austin Theory in a match, but I just can't get it off my mind. But Roman gets the win here. Roman just didn't do WWE Unreal. And we got no post-match interview. We got no celebration. We just move it on. Keep on going. We're going right back into the booking meeting. We're basically coming out of the Rumble. We got Bruce Pritchard and Triple H trying to figure out what to do for WrestleMania. And they're saying that with Roman winning the Rumble, they know they got Roman in a good spot because he's going to be in the main event. He's the biggest superstar they have, so they need to have him there. But they are set that Oba versus Brock is going to be a big match, and that it's going to catch like white heat in wrestling. It's going to be the hottest thing that's going to sweep it. So I want to see on the road to WrestleMania how they're going to make Oba the number one guy. Where we know that he defeats Brock at WrestleMania. We know about the post-match opposite of celebration by Brock Lesnar, where he takes off his boots, takes off his gloves, leaves them in the ring, retires, waving goodbye to the fans. So how does that tie into the show? Brock Lesnar doesn't seem like a guy that's going to be stopping for a reality show camera. If they can't get Roman, I don't think they'll be able to get Brock. So we'll have to see if that was an unreal thing, or if maybe part of me thinks that Brock just played everybody. And that Brock really wanted to retire. But WWE was kind of like, hey, we really need you, so we'll give you more money, and you just stay. And he said, I'll take more money. we're going to go. But, besides for the fact that it took me a while to really remember what everybody did at WrestleMania, a great episode of WWE Unreal Season 3. A little bit of a step down from Episode 1 and Episode 2. But the one good thing for me tonight is that we're coming up on 7:30 West Coast time. I'm going to call it a night. I'm going to save Episode 4 as well as Episode 5 for tomorrow. So look forward to those reviews coming to you on Thursday when I get home from work. So it won't be like the long drawing, like Episode 4 review where I'm falling asleep, and Episode 5 where I should have been done and it just doesn't need it. I'll be refreshed. I think there'll be better reviews. I think there'll be better shows. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach. We're back for round 2 of WWE's Untold. We're watching episode 4. We watched episode 1, 2, and 3 yesterday. I really thought right out of the gate that episode 1 and 2 were some of the best episodes that WWE and Netflix have made of this show. Very into the John Cena retirement. And then the last episode, which basically covered the Royal Rumble, was pretty darn good. This episode heavily features the Elimination Chamber, which came from the United Center in Chicago in February. It is the last stop on the road to WrestleMania. It was a very exciting time in WWE. If you remember back, the excitement level for WWE wasn't at the highest it's ever been. It's probably some of the weirdest times as a wrestling fan, because people were really crapping on WrestleMania. Going to Las Vegas, taking it away from New Orleans, doing the same city for the second year in a row for the first time. And a lot of the stuff that was coming out was like, been there, seen there, done that. It is what it is. This episode featured some fun stuff that was in there. A storyline that I just absolutely did not need in a reality show, in a TV show, in anything. It is too much real life. And I understand that's what they're trying to show here. But just nobody needs Larry the dog dying. I love CM Punk. I'm a fan of AJ Lee. Larry the dog was a good dog. It was his family dog, but no one needs me coming on YouTube if one of my dogs gets sick or something like that. Like, you care about your dog. Everybody, cares about their dog, and it's the end of the world if something that was to happen to it. You probably care about a family member or a friend's dog, but a celebrity's dog dying, being a major storyline of a reality TV show, I don't think anybody needs that. There was a good part of me that was trying just to get through that. There was a good part of me that just wanted to turn the episode off, just not having to deal with it. No one wants to think about something happening bad in their family, and just watching this lets it creep in that something can happen to your wife, something can happen to your girlfriend, something can happen to your kids, something happened to your dog, and just it wasn't fun. And, it was probably a good 10 minutes of the episode, but Larry the dog dying was not fun at all. I apologize for even having to slip it in there, but we go to Naomi dropping her championship when it turns out that she found out that she was pregnant shortly after cashing in her Money in the Bank at the Evolution show, when she cashed in on Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. And when she laid down her belt, Triple H said it was a great time for a new superstar to emerge, and that is when we learn about Stephanie Bakir and her getting her chance on the Monday Night Raw brand, getting called up from NXT. Of course, she at Madison Square Garden at one of the major NXT shows. She ended up pinning Julia, becoming like the first NXT double champion, being the NXT champion as well as the Women's North American champion at the same time. It was hard to take notes and follow along because there's a big portion of the Stephanie Bakir part where she's talking is you have to be reading the subtitles on the bottom of the screen. She didn't want to speak broken English. She spoke as herself. So it is translated and put down on the bottom. During this time, I was kind of weirded out what she was doing. She had a pot, and she broke the pot with a hammer. She hit it twice. And then she put the pot back together and she painted it. I don't really know why she broke the pot. This is something that honestly I'm going to have to ask my girlfriend about. Like, is it something like it needed to have a hole in it for, like boiling water or something like that? I did not understand one bit what she was doing. But Stephanie Fakir, she becomes the new women's champion at WrestlePalooza. When they crowned the interim championship, when Stephanie Fakir beat Io Sky. They did some matches on Monday Night Raw in order to see who the number one contenders to go after the vacant championship was. That's how Fakir basically got her push. This is her intro into WWE's Untold. I'm guessing that she will be a part of the next episode, and she'll probably be a part of the next season. Normally when you pick up characters, they stick with you. And like in the last episode when we met with Chelsea Green introduced us to Matt Cardona. Even though it's just momentary, like here they are, we don't really drop them. They want to continue on, like this is what's going on with this character at this time. Braun Breaker came out after not winning the Royal Rumble, where a masked man basically came and stomped him and then threw him into the ring for Obafemi to throw him out. Braun Breaker, who was having a problem with Adam Pearce at the time, came out on Monday Night Raw, basically started tearing up the announce desk, throwing things around, and he said that when he was yelling into the microphone, he felt something in his stomach, and then he basically had to go to the back, and before he did a pre-tape, his body seized up. That's when he basically put together that he had a hernia. And the only thing that WWE, Triple H, anybody can say backstage is the Vision, they're just snake bit. This whole storyline has basically been, thrown out time after time after time again, with Seth Rollins getting injured, Seth Rollins faking the injury, Seth Rollins really getting injured. Now we're rolling into Braun Breaker getting hurt. They basically tell him it's going to be 6 weeks of nothing, and then he can get ready to get back into the ring. So everybody's doing the math on the calendars, just basically saying that this guy's pretty much done until WrestleMania. Of course, we all know that, Braun makes his return at WrestleMania during the Seth Rollins versus Gunther match. Probably going to get to that sooner than later. But they put all of their focus into Bronson Reed as the new leader of the Vision. And pretty much everything that was for Seth, they got handed to Braun, is now getting handed to Bronson Reed. And he's basically in a 3-way match. This was to crown a number one contender, or to get into the Elimination Chamber. I'm really not 100% sure what this match was. I do remember it. And he basically picks both competitors up. He tears his bicep. Once that happened, he actually had to get set up for a German suplex by El Grande Americano, Chad Gable. And then he was basically able to roll out of the ring, have the doctor look at him, and that's when it was confirmed. He did have a torn bicep, and he was going to be out. And the Vision just goes to the back, and we have Bronson Reed talking to Austin Theory. They're cursed. They know they're cursed as a team. And I mean, after this, we still have Logan Paul tearing his tricep. It's just injury after injury after injury. At this point, I'm honestly surprised that Paul Heyman hasn't got hurt somehow, somewhere along the way. But we go to the setting of Chicago, where the United Center is going to host the Elimination Chamber. We have Punk and AJ going to Pause Chicago, which is famous because it is a main thing that the Barstool Chicago talks about all of the time. When you go buy Stella Blue coffee, that bleeds back money into Pause Chicago. And CM Punk talks about the fact that when he picked up Larry, That is where they adopted Larry from. He was a dog that already had a bite on his record. If he ever, bit another person, the law is basically they would have to put him down. But CM Punk says he donates lots of money to the Pause Chicago Foundation because it is something, honestly, that is very, heartfelt to him that he carries around with him. But that day, going around and seeing Pause Chicago was a very hard and heavy day because of the fact that he had lost Larry. And now here he is surrounded by dogs. I don't know if they thought they were going to go there and find Larry too, if some lost dog was just going to find Punk, warm his heart, and just basically take him from there. But it was not to be, and you can really tell that Punk was really affected. He was trying his best, probably because of the people that were there, but it was a very hard day for him to carry. We go to Triple H, trying his best to get Trick Williams' entrance to work at the Elimination Chamber, where he's actually going to be the first competitor. They have like a under the stage thing that kind of pushes him up but spins him at the same time. Triple H is wanting smoke to come out of the whole deal, but just give him an overwhelming, if you don't know who this mother is as of right now, you are about to find out. Trick Williams is not the man to mess with, and he is going to be somebody in WWE. We then flash to going to the women's elimination chamber. At one point, when the match is going on, and actually they're having eliminations happen in the match, the door gets stuck, where basically one of the pins that holds the door closed won't come out, and they're actually having to work on it as Kiana James is getting eliminated, and they're trying to set up for a big spot with Rhea Ripley. They have to get all hands on deck. Basically, they finally get the door open, and they're able to actually roll some of the women out of the ring. I think Alexa Bliss was one of the competitors as well. And the match comes down to Tiffany versus Rhea. Basically, Rhea picks up Tiffany and puts her head right into the mat. It was a lot like the spot with Charlotte at WrestleMania 41. At that one, I think Tiffany broke her teeth, and she might have broke her nose as well. This one was bad, but it wasn't that bad. No broken teeth, bloody nose, but no broken nose. But Rhea Ripley was able to get the win, which basically set up Rhea versus Jade at WrestleMania 42 to be the winner there. But we see Becky Lynch versus AJ for the Intercontinental Championship. This is the first singles match that AJ Lee is having in WWE, let alone it's the first singles match that she's having in 10 years. After she left WWE at WrestleMania 31. Of course, you go back to WrestlePalooza, she wrestled in a tag match, but this year is a singles match, but there is no Punk, there is no Seth Rollins, there's nobody to bail them out but just AJ and Becky. But AJ pulls through as just a pure pro. Becky leads her to having a real good match, and AJ wins, becoming the Intercontinental Champion, basically setting up WrestleMania 42 with the rematch. There we go from there. CM Punk took on Finn Balor. It was kind of, we're in Chicago. CM Punk is the World Heavyweight Champion. We're having the Elimination Chamber. We don't really need Punk to fight, but we want him to have a match because we're in the United Center, and he's one of the most over people in WWE when they come to Chicago because of, Chicago made and just being a part of the people and being a part of the city there. Punk wants his matches not to be wrestling matches, not to be something pretty. He wants to get a little busted up. He wants to be loose out there. He says he wants, people to think of them as fights, not really as just, wrestling matches. But Punk hits the GTS. He gets the win, which basically sets up the match for WrestleMania. From there, AJ Lee comes running out for the Double Chicago celebration, much like WrestleMania 20 with Benoit being out there with Eddie Guerrero at the end. But, CM Punk is a bloody nose. He has maybe a bloody lip at some point. So, when Punk is asking AJ to give him a kiss, she's like, no. She doesn't want to give the people of the fetish websites something to go over. She doesn't want to be kissing CM Punk with a bloody nose at that time. It's cool because they're basically putting over the fact that CM Punk did it for Larry to go out there and get the win. And I could have swore I heard Michael Cole basically setting up that Punk was going to fight Roman at WrestleMania. But I honestly remember on Monday Night Raw when Roman was making his decision which championship he was going to go after. I'm pretty sure Punk is the one who talked Roman into picking him to have a match at WrestleMania because, one, it was the biggest match they could have. CM Punk wanted a main event night 2 of WrestleMania after main eventing the night before, and just flat out the reason that Roman came. Roman doesn't like CM Punk. We went to the men's elimination chamber to close out the show. It was funny because as they were, going through the match and you seeing the people that were in there, no Randy Orton on WWE Untold. They talked about it in the last episode. There's no there's no Roman Reigns. So to be fair, no Randy Orton on here. No talking head, no little, just smile and wave to the camera. Orton is about as old school as it gets. So honestly, I really understand it. During the match, we have Logan Paul. He went on a little run at the beginning of the Elimination Chamber. In just a moment's time, he eliminated Javon Evans, followed that by eliminating LA Knight, and then rolling up and pinning Trick Williams to give him one heck of a highlight for that. When they were trying to clean the ring up, basically open the door and get those competitors out of the chamber, a masked man appeared. Trying to get into the ring. He basically was taken down off of the cage and he was escorted to the back. And as they were escorted into the back, one of the agents reached up and grabbed and pulled off the hood. And I remember that night, it was a nobody. It was like a Seth Rollins trainee from, his wrestling school or just a local talent or something like that. And everybody was really confused. And through all of that confusion of trying to get the masked man out of there, a new masked man appeared. This man actually getting into the ring through the door, and he was able to run up and curb stomp Logan Paul, forcing his elimination, and then he pulled off the hood, basically revealing that it was Seth Rollins. At this point, it looked like, I guess, Seth Rollins was going to fight Logan Paul at WrestleMania, being how there was no other members of the Vision, and he was just trying to get to Paul Heyman. Of course, everything would be changed. Just rolled through. Rollins versus Logan Paul would have been a very fun match for WrestleMania. It was actually fun to see Paul Heyman at the Elimination Chamber managing Logan Paul during a match. Huge shot to the Vision as of the last probably 2 months when Austin Theory and Logan Paul were tag team champions and still couldn't get Paul Heyman to be with the group. And then Brock Lesnar makes his return, has matches with Obafemi. And all of a sudden, because Brock Lesnar's around, Paul Heyman doesn't have time for the Vision. Really blaming it on Maxine Dupree that, he's kind of jealous of her and that he doesn't think the Vision needs him anymore. So going off in his own direction. Drew McIntyre comes into the chamber following them trying to get Seth Rollins out of there. Basically, Drew gets messed up. He's getting beat up by Cody as well as Randy. Cody Rhodes rolls over, hits him with a crossroads, and then Randy Orton reaches out and grabs an RKO, pinning Cody Rhodes. From there, Randy Orton wins the Elimination Chamber. He wins the ticket to go to WrestleMania 42 at Las Vegas to fight for the WWE Championship. And we see Cody Rhodes laying on the mat, looking up at the lights. No main event for Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. And then we flash to the back with Triple H saying it's his job to get Cody to WrestleMania and that his story is not over. And at this point, I'm writing things down as the credits are starting to roll, starting to put things together again. Drew McIntyre is getting screwed for the second time in 2 episodes on season 3 of WWE Untold, and he's not even on the show either, much like Randy as well as Roman. But in the last episode, on the farewell tour of John Cena at Crown Jewel, it was scheduled John Cena versus Drew McIntyre. Cena versus McIntyre never really had a match in WWE as I can really think of. I don't really think of their careers, crossing paths, but Drew McIntyre is one of the main names. He's one of the biggest heels in the company. It makes sense to do it. But basically, John Cena listened to the crowd, listened to Twitter, listened to the internet, and they decided to change Crown Jewel from Drew versus Cena to John Cena versus AJ Styles. Ended up being a very good match. It seems like everybody loved it, from critics to fans. So everybody was a winner except for Drew McIntyre. So we all know in the next episode, Drew's going to get hosed on an episode of SmackDown where he loses WrestleMania. He loses his WWE Championship. Not good for Drew. I just feel bad for the dude. Honestly. And the one major thing that I thought of that was missing, if you're going to be doing a reality show about the Elimination Chamber show, you could have involved Danhausen, where he was kind of like talking with his real voice instead of his character voice, talking about his debut, how much it means to debut in WWE. And I thought it would have been really fun to cover how he bombed that night. If you remember the Elimination Chamber, if you know how over this guy was at Fanatics Fest in New York City last weekend, think about where he was in February, just 4 months ago. Guy getting booed out of the United Center. It would have been crazy to have a chapter of this documentary on Danhausen. So, all right, next one's the last one. Let's get to episode 5, WrestleMania 42. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today with the 5th and final episode of Season 3 of WWE Unreal. This is the grandest stage, basically a look inside WrestleMania 42 in Las Vegas. I will tell you honestly, I am about an hour out from watching this show. I wrote down a lot of notes, but I had to run to Costco to get some weekend supplies with my girlfriend when she got home, so I'm not as fresh as I once was, and I'm sure as I'm checking on my notes here, I wrote more notes for this episode, 3 pages, than I wrote about any other episode along the way, but maybe it was a little bit because I was a little bored. I'll tell you the truth, ending the documentary on WrestleMania is kind of weird because of the fact, like, anybody who is going to watch WWE Unreal watched WrestleMania. Anybody that is a wrestling fan pretty much watches WrestleMania the day that it comes out. No matter if they're a little bit of a lapsed fan, a hardcore fan, it's WrestleMania. It's the biggest show of the year. Pretty much we know everything that's going down, whether if you're listening to the Dave Meltzer Observer radios, you're watching YouTube videos such as this, you watch the show, you watch the Raw after WrestleMania, you catch the storylines. I guess here you got a little bit of a behind the scenes glimpse, but most of this stuff, you know who wins the matches. You know what got you there. You know where they're going from there, even if it's not in the show. They pretty much stick away from things, that storylines that drop. They did a good job. It was a good show, but it's just a rough ending. And I think if I go back to my season 1 review, it pretty much ends the same way. Just going to WrestleMania 41 with, that was John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. This, of course, is Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes, and it's Roman Reigns versus CM Punk. But let's get to it. We're off and running. Episode 5, The Grandest Stage. This episode opens up with Cody Rhodes at the WWE Archives, the big warehouse, one of the ones that they have, with the archivist, Ben Brown, walking around, and Cody's looking at all the things, and he's trying to basically see how he fits into the history of WWE, what he has there, what is something that he could bring to the table to have something there. And Ben basically walks him over and he shows him his tights from WrestleMania 26. And of all 3 seasons of WWE, of, all of the episodes in season 3, the biggest thing that I've learned that I did not know going in, that at WrestleMania 26, Cody Rhodes was not supposed to be in that match. It was not supposed to be a 3-way. It was Randy Orton that went to bat for Cody to get him into that match. I know that a big part of the Elimination Chamber and the build up to that was, Ted DiBiase, whether he was going to turn on Randy Orton, whether, his star was starting to shine bright and Randy was getting jealous, much like when Randy was in Evolution with Triple H. But Cody kind of swayed. Ted DiBiase was his tag partner. Randy Orton was his leader. Who was he going to follow? Was he going to be his own man? You go back and you watch my WrestleMania 26 prediction video. I picked Cody Rhodes to win that match. Not because at WrestleMania 26 he was my favorite wrestler on the card, because of the fact I thought that Cody needed the win at WrestleMania, because I didn't think he had a very good odds of being around for WrestleMania 27. Of course, WrestleMania 27, he would wrestle Rey Mysterio. WrestleMania 28, he would wrestle against The Big Show. WrestleMania 29, he was supposed to be in an intergender tag match, but that match ended up getting bumped. WrestleMania 30, he was probably on the Battle Royal on the pre-show, I'm guessing. WrestleMania 31, he would have been in the Intercontinental ladder match. I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure anymore. I have to look that up. WrestleMania 32, I know he was in that Intercontinental ladder match. And then, of course, that was it. There would be no WrestleMania 33. It would be WrestleMania 38 when he made his return. So we'll see. But basically, very fast, we ended episode 4 talking about what was to come, and they didn't really tell us the story. They just told us what happened. Coming out of the Elimination Chamber, Cody beats Drew McIntyre on an episode of SmackDown. Then Cody and Orton have a WrestleMania contract signing where basically Cody gets turned on by Randy Orton. Randy Orton turns heelish, I guess you can say, but the one thing that they learn on the build-up to Royal Rumble is Randy Orton has been around so long that he has so many fans that it doesn't matter what he does, people are going to cheer him, and that is a problem that they have to basically figure out what is going on. But we are set for WrestleMania, Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. Drew McIntyre screwed yet once again. Drew's got a good contract. Drew's in a good spot. He went out and he made the movie. We're waiting for his return. Hopefully, he fits into something during, around, after SummerSlam. Here's to having Drew McIntyre back in WWE. He's one of my favorite in-ring as well as favorite superstars to be there. It just turns out in the last year, he's been WWE champion, so it's hard to say, but the dude's got the shaft around all over. He didn't get his Cena match. He didn't get his WrestleMania main event when he was champion coming out of the chamber. Stuff happens. It is what it is. We see the Liv Morgan injury on Monday Night Raw, which is the Monday before WrestleMania, where basically Stephanie Bakir comes behind, shoves Liv in to Roxanne Perez. They bump heads. She gets the big, I think they're called hemoglobin bumps or whatever it is, the big, huge knot that appeared seconds after happening. And basically every morning that she woke up and the blood was starting to drain out, the blood would go down into her eyes. And then, of course, at WrestleMania, that's why she has the huge black eye effect going on, which is very funny because if you think of her WrestleMania walk to the ring, she's coming out with the Trouble Trouble song, which is going to be her new theme that, much like Shawn Michaels, WWE came to and said, hey, you want to sing this song? And she's like, I'm not much of a singer, but let's do it. But we see her doing her practice walkthrough, I guess you can say. My favorite thing of the whole thing was seeing Bayley ringside and being emotional for Liv Morgan, having this moment 12 years in WWE, finally getting a singles match for the World Heavyweight Championship. And there's a lot going around about Bayley right now, whether if she's leaving WWE, if she's staying, is she going to sign another contract, is she going to retire and be a coach, is she going to go hang out with Sasha? Lots of stuff going down, but you can tell that she really loves this stuff. From the that was a couple episodes ago, being out in the crowd with CM Punk, watching John Cena's last match at gorilla position every single chance that she got, being around the ring for practices and walkthroughs of WrestleMania, reacting with all of the girls, like sharing the role of the locker room leader that Lyra in her promos said she wasn't, but just a momentary thing. Bayley isn't a big character in WWE in real, but she is around a lot. So you kind of see what her spot is on the show. Seth Rollins, he made his return at the Elimination Chamber. The way that they really fit him into WrestleMania was fitting him in and getting him a match against Gunther. But they come up with the plans that Braun Breaker is going to make his return. During that, they're just trying to figure out what the heck they're going to be doing. We go into showing the AJ versus Becky Lynch Intercontinental Championship match. That one ended with Becky Lynch grabbing the exposed turnbuckle, rolling up AJ after she took the head bump into it. 1, 2, 3. I thought it was very interesting that we have not seen AJ Lee since WrestleMania, and we are into SummerSlam. And one of the biggest problems that I have with the AJ Lee character in 2026 is that, she made her debut, she wrestled a match, she went away, she came back, she wrestled another match, she went away, she came back and wrestled a match, and now she's gone. But she said that, she thought that this run was going to be her goodbye that she never got. But it turns out that she's pretty damn good at wrestling still at her age and at this time in WWE, and she wants to see how far she can go. And that's very interesting to me because, of course, momentarily after this, we see AJ sharing a moment with Bayley at the MGM Grand, and then of course that's where the fan came up and tried to interfere, and that's where CM Punk bumped the phone, bumped the fan, got everything all fired up, and everybody's talking about fans at the hotels at WrestleMania. I thought Bayley and AJ were having that moment because I was wondering, maybe did AJ get hurt at WrestleMania? Did she come up with the idea that she didn't want to wrestle anymore and that was going to be her retirement, and Bayley was trying to console AJ in that moment? I still think there's a little bit of conspiracy there, but we'll see. But if you're an AJ Lee fan, seeing her say on Unreal how far we can go, even with Triple H when he signed her, saying that it was a long-term deal, that she could be in WWE basically as long as CM Punk was going to be there. Interesting. We're going to have to see where we go from there. Maybe they're just trying to keep AJ Lee's next run, next pop-up, a surprise, to just sort of keep her there, because the one thing that they were really loving was the fact that AJ, she got all of those social media views when she popped up for the first time. The Gunther versus Seth Rollins match basically was all about, Braun Breaker. He, made his return, running down to the ring, going all the way down the ramp, around the ring, hitting Seth Rollins with the spear, picking him up, throwing him back into the ring. Gunther basically picked Rollins up, threw him right into the choke where Seth Rollins tapped. Gunther got his moment, and then as Seth was getting out of the ring to, get to the back, Braun came running down the ramp once again. Huge spear, dropped him for a second time, and Braun Breaker got to go to the back, and he was very emotional about getting back to WrestleMania and, trying to claim his spot as moving up the card, becoming a superstar that is a bigger part of WWE. As of right now, Braun Breaker has this moment, but he is 0-1 at WrestleMania. At WrestleMania 41, he was in the Intercontinental 4-Way. He ended up dropping that belt, so then the Vision could start on Monday. So the story really wasn't that he dropped the belt. He just wasn't the Intercontinental Champion anymore. If I was to buy stock in a wrestler, I would seriously buy stock in Braun Breaker. I went on a long tangent about him in the last one, but I think that honestly he is the future of WWE. I want to see how far we go from there. Stephanie Vakir came out with her match for Liv Morgan for the Women's World Heavyweight Championship, the Monday Night Raw title. Dom, who was at Gorilla to watch Liv's match because he was going to be in the post-match celebration with the Judgment Day coming down to the ring, he looked at Liv Morgan's entrance as she walked out and basically said, is she going to wrestle in that gear? As in, it never came up what Liv was going to be wearing, what she was going to be doing. I found it honestly very weird. Liv got the win, and when she got the win, she basically laid on the mat for about an extra 5 seconds. She said she did that for little Liv Morgan, who was a WWE fan back in the day, thinking about all of the time she was watching matches, how hard she trained to get there, and just believing that it was. In the back, Stephanie Vakir, I think she said it was the perfect day, but she might have said it was the most perfect way to lose the title. Of course, Liv would jump Stephanie Vakir, I believe, the Raw after WrestleMania. And then after that, Stephanie Vakir got injured, where we haven't seen her. And also, Liv Morgan didn't defend the title until SummerSlam, when she's going to face Io Sky. Also, Liv didn't wrestle until Night of Champions. I don't know if they were trying to save Liv for a Stephanie return, and so they can go right into Stephanie versus Liv in a rematch of WrestleMania. But one way or another, Liv kind of got lost in the shuffle coming out of WrestleMania right there. But we go to WrestleMania's Night 1 main event, with Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. It was revealed that Pat McAfee was the one that Randy Orton was making the phone calls to back in the day. Do you remember when we were making videos and we were making predictions, thinking that maybe he was talking to The Rock? Maybe he was talking to The Undertaker. Maybe he was talking to his father, Bob Orton. But Pat McAfee shows up. It was a special way to try and put heat on to Randy Orton. People didn't want McAfee kind of coming to WWE, telling them what they were watching and what they were doing was kind of lame, and that he was trying to make it better. The second that the match started, they got rid of McAfee in the most perfect way. I remember, when it happened, thinking that it was so brilliant because nobody wanted to have McAfee around for the match. People hated him. He was a huge heat seeker right then. But basically, Jelly Roll jumped the rail as a Cody Rhodes fan, beat up Pat McAfee, took him out, and both guys were pretty much removed, from the ring. And we were left with Randy versus Cody. And it basically started the match over, got everybody, just sort of singled up, and, that's where we go from there. But Cody said the biggest problem is that in the match, Randy Orton was looked at as the babyface. That crowd, whether you call it the Bizarro Land because it's the WrestleMania crowd, they love to boo Cody Rhodes. They love to boo Randy Orton. So Cody had to wrestle a different style of match where he was on the offensive. He was the first one to bust Randy Orton open. Actually, when Cody gets busted open, I think it's 100% accident. I think the way that Triple H reacted at the first glimpse of blood on Cody was like, oh shoot, because they were probably thinking of all the pictures and all the video that they're going to have to turn black and white, or try and edit out the blood or things like that, or trying to clean him up. But I'll tell you the truth, by the time this thing's over, there's no cleaning up Cody Rhodes. But that's the way I think he honestly wanted it. And there was a lot of confusion, I think you can say, at least for me, the viewer. I've watched lots and lots of wrestling, many WrestleManias over the years, but I did not understand why Randy Orton RKO'd the ref. At the time, I still think that Randy had something in his eyes. Maybe it was the blood, maybe something like that. He didn't know that it was the ref. He thought it was Cody. It's a babyface mistake, and Cody's saying that, Randy was playing the babyface. Kind of, goes into that whole ordeal. But basically, when Randy RKO'd the ref, we had Randy trying to go low on Cody, so Cody blocked it, and then he just turned around and he kicked Orton right into the nuts. At that point, Pat McAfee came running out of the back. As a fan, I was sitting on my couch, and I remember like, oh shoot, McAfee is about to jump sides and go with Cody Rhodes. But when he finally got to the ring, Randy was covering Cody, and he went 1, 2, Cody kicked out, and McAfee stopped the count. So if McAfee is supposed to be with Randy, and he is also playing the referee, why wouldn't he give him the heel referee 3, call for the bell, and give Randy the championship? As a wrestling fan, that's when I was like, I don't know what's going on, but something is mixed up. It didn't really make sense to me. As soon as that happened, Randy, I think, took offense that McAfee wasn't working for him anymore, and he hit McAfee with the RKO, taking him out. And at that point, Cody just took advantage of Randy having his head out, grabbed him, crossroads him, 1, 2, 3. And we had Cody get the win. And I thought that it was going to be a good moment. Randy got rid of McAfee, so Randy would probably hug and console Cody, and they would be best friends again, and they would both be baby faces. But basically, Randy hit Cody with an RKO, and then when he was done, came and kicked him right in the face. The only problem is that I think when Randy went for the RKO and Cody was holding the belt, somehow the belt clocked Cody in the top of the head, which turned his blonde hair red. And then basically when Cody was down for the punt, He says he didn't pull his head because it's WrestleMania and he wanted to have this moment played forever. Randy just punted him right in the eye. And you saw that eye by the time he got to the back. It was just swelled shut. He couldn't even open it. It wasn't like he was trying to act or trying to do anything. It's just that thing was just so shut. And at one point, Cody was even saying he might lose his eye. And he was fine with it. He said it was the nature of WrestleMania. And as this was coming to a close, at this point, I honestly thought this was the end of the show. And I would have been happy with it. I guess I completely forgot that CM Punk was a major character on this season, because all of a sudden they went to getting ready for night 2, and we see CM Punk walking around, going through rehearsals, and I was like, oh, we still got a little bit. And we ended up going for about 20 more minutes. In the back we saw John Cena walking up and meeting Obafemi and Trick Williams, and basically saying that he was what's the word I'm looking for? He basically was looking forward to Obafemi's match more than Trick Williams' match. Basically just because of himself. If you go back to what he said about trying to heat Brock Lesnar up, Brock Lesnar was going to be doing the favors for Obafemi, and we go from there. These are a little bit out of order because they were really doing it weird at this point, but they talk about Trick Williams with Little Yachty, him coming out at WrestleMania, being in front of his family who were in the front row for his match, the huge train that he walked down to the ring with. He ended up beating Sami Zayn and winning the United States title. Obafemi's match against Brock Lesnar, for the way he was used as a character in episode 3, episode 4, episode 5, and them not wanting to focus on Brock Lesnar, not wanting to focus on the loss, the retirement. They basically wanted to put over that Oba had a big moment, but they didn't want to put anybody down in the long run. Then again, like we talked about Roman, we talked about Randy, who did show up for a little bit when they're talking about backstage stuff right before, right after the match. So it's not like he said no cameras, but Roman, Brock, nothing. So I don't know if that was just one of the stipulations of the match, but Oba beats Brock Lesnar, has one hell of a moment, and then we go into Punk versus Roman in the WrestleMania main event, and they say that Roman Reigns has been in the main event 11 times now at WrestleMania, and I had to write this down to figure this out. So I was like, his first main event was WrestleMania 31. We are at WrestleMania 42, so he has main evented every show except for one. And that one would be the one that he took off WrestleMania 36 that he was supposed to be in. So if the world doesn't go wacko in 2020, he's main evented 12 WrestleManias in a row, which is crazy because you think by the time they get to WrestleMania 9, Hulk Hogan doesn't main event that show, but he's in the main event. People were done with Hulk Hogan. I don't think people are done with Roman Reigns. Throwing up the ones just like that, that's beyond crazy. Now, we went through Cody Rhodes' thing earlier. I'll tell you the truth, I can't do it with Roman. I've had too many starts and stops in wrestling since WrestleMania 32, I guess you can say. After that is when I started taking my hiatuses from wrestling. I can't even think if he fought The Undertaker at 33 or 34. I get mixed up, straight up. I wonder how many of those he fought Brock Lesnar at. It feels like it's 1,000, but he's a special talent. Punk goes to the top rope, and before he does his spot that he thought of, he touched the paw print that he just recently had tattooed on himself from Larry the Dog, where Larry used to stand on him and try to get his attention from back in the day. Punk tells a story of trying to take Larry for walks when it was in the rain. And one time he had to carry him because Larry didn't want to walk in the rain. Punk took a bad step. He fell down, and as soon as Punk fell, he kind of put Larry down to try to recoup himself and get back up. And he just saw that Larry's face was looking at him like, "Are you gonna pick me up? Hurry up and pick me up. I'm standing here on the wet ground. What are we doing?" But he said that the jump was a bad idea, but it was done to the best of his ability. It was his first jump off the top turnbuckle through an announce table since 2013, which, in my mind, he does that spot all of the time. I would have guessed he would have done it in AEW. I would have guessed that he'd done it in matches against, Seth Rollins, trying to put him away in this run. I don't know if that's 100% true or not, but he says it's his first jump since 29 with The Undertaker. The story of Roman versus Punk, to me, is that Punk had the fight. Punk could have beat Roman, but Punk's body gave out from basically just the lifestyle, the matches. Roman is a part-time worker. CM Punk was a full-time worker. On the road to WrestleMania, he had 2 matches against Finn Balor, one at Elimination Chamber, one on Monday Night Raw. He was in various tag team matches, just trying to get the road to WrestleMania heated up. And Roman was just cool, calm, and collected. And at one point, Punk, picked up Roman for the GTS. He hit it. And then Roman fell onto his shoulders, and he looked like he was about to hit another GTS for the win. But as he was standing up, he just straight collapsed. And Roman, if you give him an inch, he's going to take a mile. Bounced off the ropes. Spear. Bounced off the ropes. Spear. 1, 2, 3. CM Punk was very proud of himself. He did one of the boyhood dreams of main eventing WrestleMania, the real main event of WrestleMania. And he says that he feels good being the best 48-year-old wrestler that there is in the world. He says there's no way he's waiting another 15 years to main event WrestleMania. He says that he's going to do everything in his power to see you again next year. And then, of course, we're flashing backstage through pictures and videos of all of the people that were on Untold after WrestleMania and trying to sew up storylines. I swear we see Trick Williams in the back, and after his match, he's greeted by Kofi Kingston. Somebody was wearing tights. Maybe it was Javon Evans. Javon Evans was at WrestleMania. Somebody jumped on him. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it wasn't Kofi. Maybe it was Javon Evans who jumped into Trick Williams' arms. But I thought that it was weird that Kofi, who didn't wrestle at 42, would have been wearing tights. But maybe they keep emergency guys in the back in case something really goes bad. Titus O'Neil taking a picture with Obafemi was a highlight. I don't want to give too much away because I'm going to do a review of the whole season in the morning. This was a really good show. It was a really good season. Highlights was John Cena's retirement tour in the first 2 episodes. Ran out of a little bit of gas. Episode 3 was not as good, but it was good. Episode 4 went down a little bit with the Elimination Chamber. And episode 5, you felt like you knew everything because it was WrestleMania. But they didn't give us a commercial for season 4. But I'll tell you this much. I'm looking forward to it. Peace out.